She stood in the hallway, one hand resting on her pregnant belly, the other gripping the doorframe like she owned the place. "I think it's best if you move out," she said, her tone polite but her eyes sharp. "I need your room for the baby." My dad's soon-to-be bride. Not even married to him yet, and already speaking like she'd inherited the deed. I stayed where I was, leaning against the wall. No anger in my voice, no raised tone, just steady and controlled. "Lady, this house is mine, you're just a temporary guest." Her lips tightened but she didn't back down. "It's better for everyone if you just go. We need space and you're, well, young. You'll figure something out." From the kitchen, I could hear my dad moving around, the clink of a mug against the counter. He was pretending not to listen, which told me he was listening to every single word. When she first moved in, Dad swore it would be just for a little while, until they found their own place. Weeks turned into months, months turned into this, her standing in my hallway deciding my future for me. I studied her for a moment, watching her shift her weight, maybe expecting me to argue or plead. Instead, I stepped forward slowly, close enough for my words to land without question. "I won't repeat myself," I said quietly. "You're in my home." For a second I thought I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. But then she gave me that practiced smile, the kind that says you'll regret this but not right away. I moved past her, grabbed my jacket off the back of the chair and opened the front door. The cold air hit me sharp and clean, a reminder that there was more life beyond these walls. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam the door. I just stepped outside and let the silence do the talking. Because sometimes, the quiet is where the real plans begin. Have you ever had someone walk into your life and act like they could erase you overnight? I wasn't gone for good. Not even close. I didn't go far that night. Just sat in my truck at the end of the driveway, headlights off, watching the windows of my own house. Through the curtain gap in the living room, I saw my dad sit at the table with her. She leaned in, speaking low. He nodded, not once looking toward the window. It hit me then, this wasn't her idea alone. He'd let it happen. I stayed there until the light in the hallway went dark. Then I drove to the one place I knew wouldn't ask questions, Tyler's garage. Tyler's the kind of friend who doesn't need an explanation. He saw me pull up, tossed me a blanket and pointed to the couch in the corner. "You can stay as long as you want," he said. That was it. No pity. No prying. The next morning my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "We'll talk later. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder? I almost laughed. He was the one letting someone else decide my place in my own home. That afternoon I went back, not to argue but to look. She was in the kitchen, humming while unpacking new dishes from a box. Boxes that weren't there a week ago. She was nesting, settling in like this was her forever. I noticed something else, the key rack by the door. My spare key was gone. I didn't say a word to her. Instead, I walked through the house, taking mental snapshots of everything. The furniture, the family photos, even the papers on Dad's desk. Because I knew one thing. If she thought she could push me out, she had no idea how deep my roots ran here. When I stepped outside, she called after me. "It's nothing personal. You'll understand one day." I didn't even turn around. On the drive back to Tyler's, I kept thinking about her words. "You'll understand one day." Maybe I would. But it wouldn't be the way she imagined. If she was planning a life here, she'd learn something important. You can't build a future on someone else's foundation without cracks showing. And I was about to make sure those cracks became impossible to ignore. 2 days passed before I went back again. Not to talk, just to watch. From across the street, parked behind an old oak tree, I could see them through the front window. She was rearranging the living room, dragging the couch to face the opposite wall, while Dad stood by holding a lamp like he didn't know where to put it. Every move she made was like erasing a piece of my mom's touch from that house. I'd grown up in those walls. Every scuff on the floor, every dent in the doorframe had a story. And now, she was covering it all with her version of home. That night, I went online and pulled up county records. This house wasn't just my childhood home, it was mine legally. Mom left it to me when she passed. Dad had no say, no claim, and neither did the woman he was about to marry. I stared at the digital deed, my name printed clear at the top, and felt something settle inside me. The next morning, I stopped by the local hardware store. Bought a new set of locks. The clerk didn't ask questions. Small towns are good that way. Back at the garage, Tyler watched me set the bag down. "You're making a move?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "But soon." Over the next few days, I gathered everything I'd need. A storage unit key, moving boxes, and a quiet plan. If she wanted my room, she'd have to fight for it, and she'd lose. By the end of the week, I walked into the house like I owned it, because I did. She was sitting at the table, sipping tea, her belly just starting to show. "You can't just walk in here," she said. I pulled the deed from my jacket pocket and slid it across the table. "Actually, I can." She glanced at it, then at me, her mouth tightening. "Your father doesn't own this place," I cut in. "Never has. And you? You're just staying here on borrowed time." Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't speak. I picked up the deed, folded it carefully, and put it back in my pocket. "You wanted me gone," I said quietly. "Let's see how you feel when the roles are reversed." And then I walked out, because the next part of my plan wasn't about words. It was about timing. I didn't go back for almost a week. Not physically anyway. But in a small town, you don't have to be inside the walls to know what's happening in them. The cashier at the grocery store mentioned she'd seen Dad and her shopping together, filling a cart like they were furnishing a new life. A neighbor said they'd hired a handyman to make changes in the spare rooms. Every detail was another piece of proof. She wasn't just staying. She was settling. Which made what I was about to do even better. On a Wednesday morning, I took the day off work and drove to the county office. All it took was one form to have the property records mailed to me officially, stamped and signed. Proof beyond dispute. Next, I called the storage unit manager. "I'll need one cleared by Friday," I told him. "Big enough for furniture." Friday came. Tyler met me at the curb, the back of his truck empty and ready. "You sure about this?" he asked. I nodded. "Every piece she's tried to claim goes in storage. And I mean everything." We waited until the afternoon when I knew they'd be gone, her prenatal checkup. I still remembered the time from a calendar I'd glimpsed in the kitchen. By the time they returned, the living room would be bare. We moved fast. The couch she'd turned around? Gone. The throw pillows she'd bought? Boxed. The fancy dishes stacked in the kitchen cabinet? Wrapped and packed. Even the curtains she'd put up last month came down. By the time we finished, the house looked like someone hit pause in the middle of moving day. And in the middle of the empty living room, on the floor where the coffee table used to be, I left a single envelope. Inside was a copy of the deed, my name in bold at the top, and a short note in plain handwriting. "This isn't your home. It never will be." We were pulling out of the driveway when their car turned in. I didn't slow down. I just watched in the rearview mirror as she got out, stood frozen at the door, then looked around like the air had been stolen from her. I didn't need to see her face to know she'd read the note. The first move was mine. I stayed away the entire weekend. Didn't answer Dad's calls. Didn't respond to her texts, though most of them weren't really messages. Just short, clipped lines like, "You've gone too far," or, "This is harassment." By Monday morning, I walked into the coffee shop downtown and spotted Dad at a corner table. Alone. No ring on his finger yet, but his eyes looked heavier. He didn't waste time. "What's your endgame here?" "My home. My space. My life," I said. "The one Mom left me, remember?" He shifted uncomfortably. "She's carrying my child. And I'm carrying the deed," I replied. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Can't you at least be civil? She feels unwelcome." I almost laughed. "Good. She is." That afternoon, I went back to the house for the first time since the clean-out. She was there, standing in the middle of the empty living room, arms folded over her stomach. "You think this scares me?" she asked. "No," I said. "I think it reminds you of reality." She stepped closer. "Reality is you're making your father choose between you and his family." I looked at her carefully. "I'm not making him choose." "You are." Her jaw tightened. "I'm not leaving." "Then I guess you'll be comfortable without a key," I said, pulling a small paper bag from my pocket. Inside were the old house keys I'd replaced the week before. I dropped them onto the bare floor, the metal clink echoing in the emptiness. She bent to pick them up, confusion flashing across her face. "You changed the locks?" I didn't answer. I just walked past her, opened the front door and let it close behind me. That night, Tyler and I sat in the garage, the smell of motor oil in the air. "She's digging in," I told him. He grinned. "So dig deeper." And that's when the next part of my plan came together, simple, legal, and impossible for her to stop. All I needed was the right timing. And the right witness. Because sometimes the most effective revenge isn't loud or dramatic. It's paperwork. The next morning, I was at the county clerk's office when the doors opened. The woman behind the counter recognized me. "Need another copy of your deed?" she asked. "Not today," I said. "Today, I need an occupancy notice filed." She raised an eyebrow. "Eviction?" "Something like that," I replied. Within 20 minutes, the forms were filled out, all signed, dated, and stamped with the county seal. In a small town, paper moves fast when your name's on the property. That afternoon, I stopped by my uncle's office. He's not a lawyer, but he's been in real estate for 30 years. Knows every loophole in the book. She's not on the lease. She's not married to your dad yet. She's a guest, he said, flipping through my paperwork. You can have her out in 30 days. Less if she pushes back. That was exactly what I wanted to hear. By Thursday, the notice was printed and ready. I didn't hand it to her myself. No, I wanted it delivered by someone who wouldn't get caught in her games. So I called Marcus, a process server who lived 2 streets over. Tomorrow morning, I told him. Make sure she signs for it. Friday, 10:04 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Done. I drove past the house later that day. She was on the porch, the envelope in her hand, staring out toward the street like she could will me into appearing. I didn't stop. I just kept driving. The sight burned into my mind. That night Dad called. No hello. Just, what are you doing? Exercising my rights, I said. She's pregnant, for God's sake. And this house, I said slowly, is not part of the deal. There was silence on the other end, followed by a sigh that told me more than words. He knew I was right. He just didn't want to admit it. 2 days later, Tyler handed me a folded flyer. You might want to see this, he said. It was an online ad, someone looking for a 2-bedroom rental before the baby comes. Her name wasn't on it, but the phone number was hers. The cracks were showing. And I knew exactly how to widen them. By Monday morning, the air around the house had changed. The curtains stayed closed, the driveway was empty more often than not. It was like they were trying to make the place invisible. Tyler and I sat in his garage, coffee steaming in our hands. She's looking for somewhere else, I said. She's already got 1 foot out the door, he replied. You just need to make sure the other foot follows. That afternoon, I took a slow walk around the property. Not inside, just the yard. The fence needed painting. The back porch steps were loose. Small things, but in the right context, they said something important. This house takes work. When you don't own something, work feels like a burden. When you do, it feels like an investment. I knew which side she was on. Later that week, I got a call from a mutual friend, someone who'd known Dad for years. She's been telling people you're trying to ruin their life, he said. I smiled. Good. Let her talk. Because the more she tried to spin the story, the more people started asking questions. About the house. About who really owned it. And in a small town, the truth travels faster than a lie. On Friday, I drove past again. The for rent sign in the yard wasn't mine. It was hers. A desperate move, trying to sublet a house she didn't own. I parked a block away and took a photo. Not to post, not to brag, but to keep evidence. That night, I sent the picture to my uncle with a single message. Is this even legal? He replied 2 minutes later. Not for a guest, it isn't. The next morning, I had the final document ready, a formal withdrawal of permission for her to reside on the property. Signed, dated, and witnessed. Once it was delivered, she'd have no standing at all. I didn't hand it to her myself. Marcus did again. And I made sure the timing was perfect, mid-morning when the neighbors could see. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the houses, I got a text from Dad. We need to talk. Alone. I read it twice. The fight wasn't over, but I could feel the ending forming. Quiet, certain, and entirely on my terms. All that was left was to let her take the final step herself. Dad was waiting for me on the front porch when I pulled up. No smile, no small talk. Just a slow shake of his head. She's leaving, he said quietly. You happy now? I stepped up onto the porch. Happy? No. Relieved? Yeah. He leaned against the railing. You didn't have to push it this far. I didn't push anything, I said. I just reminded her, and you, whose house this is. Inside, the living room was half empty again, but not because of me this time. Boxes stacked by the door, suitcases lined up in the hallway. She was in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in that clipped, rushed tone of someone trying to coordinate an exit. She glanced up when I walked past but didn't say a word. No smirk, no challenge. Just quiet. In that moment, I realized something. The victory wasn't in forcing her out. It was in showing her she never really had control. Dad followed me to the dining room. She's moving in with her sister until the baby comes, he said. After that, we'll see. I looked at him. If you want her in your life, that's your choice. But this house, that choice is mine. He didn't argue. Maybe because he knew he'd lost the leverage he thought he had. 2 days later, I came home from work and saw the driveway empty. Completely. The boxes, the suitcases, all gone. Inside, the house felt like it had taken a deep breath. The walls looked wider, the air lighter. My home again. On the kitchen counter, there was a single envelope with my name on it. No note inside, just the old set of keys I'd taken from her weeks before. She'd kept them, maybe as a silent way to say she still belonged. Now they were back where they belonged. I stood there for a long time, the metal cool in my hand. No cheering, no gloating. Just quiet. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about humiliation. It's about restoration. I walked to the front door, locked it, and set the keys in the drawer. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a guest in my own life.